Okay, we are on and running. Daf Yomi for this week is sponsored, first of all, by our very own Rabbi Aaron Kislasi for the Refuah Shlema. Am I pronouncing right? Gracia Bad Misoda, is that correct? Okay, good. And Hadrabad Esther, that's his mother and his mother-in-law, for an Aliyah's Neshama for Nechemia Yisrael Meir ben Malka. And Daf Yomi is also sponsored this week by Dan Stern in honor of Rabbi and Rebbetzin Avraham and Rachel Gislason. And today's Daf Yomi is sponsored by Yitzi and Eva Klein, Bizchus a Refuah Shlema for Ephraim ben Shifra. We are at the two dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 lines from the bottom. Ein donin, that we don't judge the tribe, a full tribe, unless we have the full Sanhedrin of 71. Okay, so we're into the cases that require the 71. So the Gemara wants to know, Hai shevet dechata b'mai, what avera did this shevet do? That we're going to bring it to court. What does a shevet do an avera? What avera was it? And we presume that means most of the shevet did this avera. What avera is it? So ilam shevet shechilos Shabbos. Let's say maybe, for example, the shevet was mechal Shabbos. Most of the people in the shevet are not keeping Shabbos.
You'd be chayav misa
if you're mechal Shabbos. A normal person, right? Aimer de polig rachmana ben yechidim lemerubin leinyan avodas kochavim b'shar mitzvos mi polig. But we never find a distinction between an individual who is Mechalel Shabbos and a group of people who are Mechalel Shabbos. So they're always the same thing. No, there is no difference, right? But there is a difference if an individual worships Avodah Zarah and if a whole city worships Avodah Zarah. If an individual worships Avodah Zarah, so he has one misa, and then there's a different misa for a ir hanidachas, for a city that worships Avodah Zarah. So there's a different punishment for them. So therefore, a punishment changing for a group makes sense if the avera is Avodah Zarah, not if it's Shabbos. Elo b'shevet shehudach. So rather, this is a circumstance when the shevet decides they're going to worship Avodah Zarah. Lemeimer debedina derabim daininon lei. So that seems to imply that what we're doing here is we are going to judge the entire shevet like an ir nidachas. Is that really what we're saying? So, Kiman. So, who's that like? Who is this opinion that holds that we're going to judge an entire shevet? I guess you'd burn the entire shevet to the ground and destroy the whole shevet. Who holds that way?
Is there something called a group stoning?
No, it wouldn't be stoning, right? It would be that's the point. It would be like the ir nidachas, where everybody is killed with the sword and then we burn them down. So that's the city. That's a city level crime. We wouldn't do that to a shevet. So, Kiman. Who holds that way? Who says that we would do that? Lo Rabbi Yoshia, lo Rabbi Yonos, and there's only two opinions on the matter, and it doesn't follow either one. Not Rabbi Yoshia, not Rabbi Yonos, and Tanya Winner Brisa. Ad kama osin ir nidachas. How many people do we have to have in order for it to be an ir nidachas? So the question is what we're talking about, how many people have to do it? Are we talking about the number of people in the city that, how many people have to be in the city in order for it to be considered a city? That will at least explain it that way. That's how Rashi explains it, that you need to have this many people in the city, miyud v'ad kuf. You need to have between 10 and 100 people in the city. If you have between 10 and 100 people, then you can have an ir nidachas. Divrei Rabbi Yoshi, it's Rabbi Yoshi. Rabbi Yonasan Omer, Rabbi Yonasan says, no, mikuf v'ad rubo shel shevet. It's 100, between 100 and most of the shevet. But v'afilu Rabbi Yonasan lo ka'omar ella rubo. That's now even Rabbi Yonas and Rabbi Yonasan is saying that you're going to go up to the majority of the shevet. Right, but avakulo lo. But if the entire shevet worships Avodah Zarah, right, meaning at least the majority of that shevet, you wouldn't turn this avera into an ir nidachas crime and kill the entire shevet, or kill all the people who are doing the Avodah Zarah. Avakulo lo. Amar Rav Masa, Rav Masa says, Hacha bin nasi shevet shechata askinan. So therefore, we can't come up with a circumstance where we would bring the entire shevet to court. Right, that's the bottom line of it. Shevet is not the same as a city. It's too large. We're not bringing the shevet to court as an ir nidachas.
Would we bring them because we can't take them to court, or what type of punishment do we give them if we can't send them to court?
They're going to be if the whole if it's too large, so we're going to judge them all as individuals. They're going to go regular courts, and each person who's worshiping Avodah Zarah is going to be judged individually. So rather, what is it that this mission is referring to as judging a shevet, a tribe of 7 in the court of 71? So that is ben nasi shevet shechata askina. We're talking about if the leader, the ruler of the shevet, he commits an avera, then we judge him in a court of a Sanhedrin. Milo Amar Rav Ada Barava Kol Davar Hagadol Yaviu Elecha. Didn't we say that Rav Ada Barava mentions that any great item that is great, the pasuk says Davar Hagadol. This was talking to Moshe Rabbeinu. Yisro was giving advice to Moshe Rabbeinu, and he says all the great matters go to you, meaning to the Sanhedrin. So even though there were lower courts, the great matters went to the Sanhedrin. What does that mean? Davar of Shel Gadol. So. This would mean that those items that are related to an important person, right? A nasi is an important person. So the Chacham said, it's Devar, so Hainami Godolhu. So therefore, this person, this nasi, is a great person, and therefore he's going to have his court case judged in front of 71. Ula Amar Rabbi Elazar. So Ula says in the name of Rabbi Elazar, Beboyin al iske nachlos uke tchiloso shel Eretz Yisrael. So he says, you know what's going on here? This is me, the third try, right? Now, the first try we dismissed. Second try we stood with. Third try of what's going on in our Mishnah is that we have a inter-tribal dispute related to whose land this area belongs to. That's what's going on. The tribes had the division of the Eretz Yisrael. The land was divided, and they said this part belongs to this tribe, this part belongs to this tribe. If two tribes have an intertribal dispute over a section of land, so then that dispute would go to the Sanhedrin to be dealt with. Why? Why would we say that? Because it's like the original division of the land of Eretz Yisrael. The original division of land, matchiloso shivim ve'echad, just like when the land was originally divided, they used the 71 judges of the Sanhedrin in order to assign each shevet their appropriate portion. Afkan shivim ve'echad. So too, if there's a new conflict between the shvatim over land, so then that's going to go to the basin of the 71. Okay, so that's the third potential answer. However, imat chilusa klapi urim v'tumim v'chol Yisrael. Afkan klapi urim v'tumim v'chol Yisrael. Well, if you're going to say that essentially we're going to need 71 judges to judge the intertribal land conflicts, then why? Because that was the original way the land was divided. Well, then take a look back in the Navi and Sefer Yeshua and take a look how they divided that land. They also went to the Urim V'Tumim. The Urim V'Tumim was the breastplate that the Kohen Gadol wore, and it had a flap behind it, and inside they put the name of Hashem on a cloth, and they put it behind there, and that gave it power. And what would happen is the stones of the Urim V'Tumim would light up, and the Kohen with Ruach HaKodesh would be able to know which order to interpret the letters, and they would get answers to their questions. And that was how they divided up the land. They asked the Urim V'Tumim. And all of Yisrael was present at that process. So therefore, if there's a land battle between conflict, and not say battle, but a land conflict between two Shvatim, not only would you need to go to the Sanhedrin, you'd need to get the Urim V'Tumim, and you'd need to get all of Klal Yisrael to come out as well. But that's not what the Mishnah says. Mishnah says all you need is the 71. So Elam Achvarta Kid Rav Masna. So rather, we're going to go back to Rav Masna's explanation. Rav Masna's explanation was that we're talking about the Nasi. That's the best answer that we've had so far. Ravina Amar, Ravina says, you know what? Let's go back to the first answer. Liolam b'shevet shehudach. We're going to go back to the first answer about the Avodah Zarah. So udikakashlach bedina derabim daininon lei. And if you're going to ask the question, well, do we have, for such a large quantity of Jews, do we have this concept of the mass trial for the large number of people? The answer is yes. Avagav de katlinon biyachid beidina derabim daininon le. He said because what would be different is all they said was the actual actual sentence carried out couldn't be carried out by the same way that we would wipe out a nir nidachas, but they would be wiped. Each person would be killed individually. But the court case itself of all the people would be carried out as a group trial with the Sanhedrin of 71.
The way they get killed, is that different ways, or it's going to be like stoning, or?
Well, because the way that you kill an individual who does avodah zarah gets skila, the way that you would kill a nir nidachas is with sayef, with the sword. right? They would come in with the army and kill everybody with the sword. That's it. So there would be a difference.
For witnesses in this case when it's
Adam, how's it
when
with
it's
Adam?
a large group.
I don't remember. Hopefully we'll get to it in the Gemara. I'm fairly confident we'll wind up with the case of exactly what are the witnesses going to testify, that we saw the majority of the city, or we saw every individual. Did every individual get a warning? I don't recall. So hopefully we'll get to some of that in the Gemara. Milo Amar, but it's not here yet. Milo Amar Rav Chama Bar Rabbi Yossi Amar Rabbi Yoshaya V'otzeisas Ishahu Oes Ha'isha Hahi, etc. Doesn't Rabbi Chama Yosef say in the name of Oshaya that it says that you're going to take this man or this woman out? Ish v'isha tamotzi l'sharecha v'yatamotzi kol ha'ir kula l'sharecha. That means that the pasuk says that individual person who's worshiping avodah zarah, they go to the local beis din in order to get judged. That means if they're part of a group avera, the entire group is now worshiping avodah zarah, so you don't take them to the local court, right? That's only this person goes to the court, and we have this what we call a limiter, which means the exclusion. Only this person goes to the local court. A group would not. A group would go to beis din. Hachanami ish v'isha tamotzi l'sharecha v'yatamotzi kol shevet kulo l'sharecha. So we would wind up with as follows: an individual who worships avodah zarah goes to the local beis din and gets killed by the local beis din. Nir nidachas goes to the Sanhedrin and then gets killed by a group punishment. And if it's the entire shevet, it gets judged by the Sanhedrin, but the misa is carried out by the individual courts of 23. So that's going to be the three levels according to this answer. Okay, next one is Loes Navi Hasheker. So we're going to a false prophet, somebody who's convicted of being a false prophet, so they're going to be killed. They're going to be convicted by the 71 judges. Minoni immediately, where do we know that from? The answer is because we're going to learn a gzeira shava. The word hazada exists when it comes to Navi Sheker and also when it comes to the concept of zakin mamre. Zakin mamre is going to be something we discuss.
What is his punishment?
He's going to also get I believe he gets skila as well. Do we mention it here? I believe he gets skila. Let's presume that his death sentence is skila because that's what I recall. But I'm not sure why I recall that. I don't think it comes up here. But that's so now. Since we're going to learn from the zakin mamre. Now the zakin mamre, what he does is he contradicts the Sanhedrin. He votes against what the rest of the Sanhedrin says, and then leaves the Sanhedrin and then goes back to his hometown and he continues to teach the way he wanted to teach, despite the fact that he got outvoted.
Can that be punishable?
That is punishable. That is exactly right. So therefore, we're going to see Malaholim B'Shivim Vecha, just like the Zakin Mamre, he has to contradict a whole Sanhedrin. So too, Afkan B'Shivim Vecha, so too, this Navi Sheker, his judgment is with 71, right? Because the words are used in both places. But one second, the word Hazada by Zakin Mamre is written by when he gets killed. Now, the Zakin Mamre has two stages to his crime. He commits a crime by contradicting 71 judges. But then, when he is brought to court, he gets brought to a court of 23 in order to be judged to determine if he contradicted the 71. So, how is he killed? He's killed with the 23 judges. So therefore, if you're going to compare the Navi Sheker to the Zakin Mamre, so then why are you not comparing it to the 23 judges, which is how the rebellious judge is getting convicted? El Amar Reish Lakish says, Gamar Davar Meha Maraso. We're going to learn a different gzeira shava. We're going to learn the word davar and davar, which is in both the Navi Sheker, the false prophet, and the crime where this judge is disputing against the other 71 judges. That dispute takes place in front of 71. So therefore, just as that dispute takes place in front of 71, so too the Navi Sheker gets judged with 71. Okay, well, then let's continue this process. The Zakin Mamre, the rebellious judge, argues with 71. That teaches us that the Navi Sheker, the false prophets, gets judged with 71. And then let's use the other gzeira shava and say, now that we know that the Navi Sheker gets judged with 71, the Zakin Mamre should also be judged with 71. Why are you judging him with only 23? The answer is davar gamir hazada hazada lo gamir, because Reish Lakish is saying there is no such gzeira shava as hazada hazada. He says we knew that there was a gzeira shava somewhere between connecting Zakin Mamre and Navi Sheker, but it wasn't the word hazada and hazada, it was the word davar and davar. And so therefore, there is no second gzera shava.
What does that mean?
The word mazid means to be on purpose, right? But it's written in both places. The psukim say, they're quoted here, Hazad and Hazada, Gimel and Dalid. Ach navi asher yazid ledaber davar bishmi, a prophet who intentionally and negligently speaks out something in Hashem's name. That's what it says there, asher yazid. And then in the pasuk of the Zakin Mamri, Vayisha asher yasib bezodon levilti shemoa el hakohen amei l'sharei sham. If somebody acts intentionally against the judgments of the Kohen that was in the Beis Hamikdash at that time. Okay, next one, Velo as Kohen Agadol. You're not allowed to judge the Kohen Gadol unless the 71 judges. We don't even know that from him. Ravada Barava says, Davar Kol Pasuk says, Kol Davar Gadol Yaviu Elecha. Anything relating that is great comes to you. We had this drush earlier on the page where we wanted to suggest that was the source that the Nasi also gets judged by the court of 71. Dvarav Shel Gadol. This means that is those rulings that have to do with the great people, meaning the Kohen Gadol gets judged by a court of 71. Mace face. We asked the question. Davar Gadol. So Davar Kasha. Right? So what is a great thing? Now, when Yisro was telling Moshe, the great things go to you, what did he mean? We always presume that means that the hard questions go to Moshe Rabbeinu, right? Not the great questions. Davar kasha, it's the hard things. Atam or davar kasha, you say it means the hard things. Oenu el dvar shel gadol, or does it really mean those things that are about great people? Keshu omer es hadavar hakasha yaviu no Moshe. Later on in another pasuk it says, and the hard questions they brought to Moshe. Hare davar kasha amar. That pasuk is talking about the hard things. So. Hu da'amar kihai. So therefore, this pasuk, which is talking about the davar gadol, can't be talking about the hard things, because the other pasuk talking about kasha, davar kasha, goes to Moshe Rabbeinu. That's talking about the hard things. Therefore, the gadol things talk about the people who are great. So therefore, two things went to Moshe Rabbeinu: the hard questions and the ones relating to the very most important people.
I understand what that means. The great people.
Great people like the Kohen Gadol. Or the Nasi.
So they took to Moshe Rabbeinu what exactly?
In order for them to go to court to be judged, you had to take them to a Sanhedrin. You cannot go to a regular court of 23 people. Okay, Hu de Amar ki hai Tana. So he holds like this Tana. The Tanya we learned in Brisa, Davar Godol. This is what Ravada Barava's his source is. This Brisa says Davar Godol, the things that are great. Dvarav Shel Gadol. That means the things that have to do with the big people. At Omer Dvar Shel Gadol. This you're saying it means that the things that have to do with the great people. Oh, Einel Davar Kasha, or does it mean the hard things? Keshomer Davar Kasha, Hare Davar Kasha. When the pasuk later on says the hard things went to Moshe Rabbeinu, so that means the hard things went to Moshe Rabbeinu. So. Amor, so davar kashomer. That's talking about the hard things. Ha mani mekayim davar gadol. So then, what do I use the pasuk that talks about the gadol things? That's davarav shel gadol. Those are the things that have to do with the great people. Now, v'haitana. Trey Kroy Lamali, according to the other opinion, who says that it means the hard things, not the great things. So then why do you need two psukim to say the hard things? So Chad Litzava Biyama, Chad Lasiya. The answer is, one was the commandment that Yisro said to Moshe, the hard things should come to you. And then the other was when they did it. And they brought the hard things to Moshe Rabbeinu. Ve'idach, so how come Ravada Barava doesn't like that answer? Im Kain Lichtov O Gadol, O Kasha, Kasha. Then use the same word twice. Right? The hard things went to Moshe. You bring the hard things. Okay, and then they bring the hard things. So you use the same word for hard things. You could say the gadol, the davar gadol means hard things, or you could say davar kasha. But if it means the same thing in both places, then use the same word. Why is it my gadol my kasha? Why does it first start using one word gadol and then switch over to the word kasha? It means shema mina, tarti. It means two things. Two different things.
Why bring the hard things to Moshe?
Because somebody's got to be able to answer them. Nobody else is smart enough to answer it.
The highest authority. He was higher than Aaron, his brother?
Yes, indeed, right? Because he was on Har Sinai and heard the Torah directly. Boy, Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar asked the following question: Shorosh Kohen Gadol bekama. How many people have to judge the ox of the Kohen Gadol? Remember that we said that the person's ox, right? We said that the ox has to get judged with 23. Why? Because the ox dies in the same way as the regular as the person dies. Well, what if the person what if it's the Kohen Gadol's ox? Does this ox now get 71 judges? Right?
Questionable.
So, Lamisas Balim Didei Midaminan Le, O Dilma Lamisas Balim Dialma Midaminan Le. Do we say it's the owner of this ox? That's what kind of court it requires? Or do we say, no, it's like a human being's court case. That's what it's like. Some Rabbi says, "Mi kami boile shoro miklal d'mamono pshitale." So he says, okay. So if the question is that he's asking, 1 second. Since the question that Rabbi Elazar was asking was about the ox, so that means that it was clear to him that any court case that involved the Kohen Gadol's financial matters didn't require 71. A regular basin of 3 would suffice. So that wasImona's pshitale. So that's pshita. So I mean that seems simple enough, right? Because it's money, it's not a person at all. So no, Ma'udatem Lord, you thought whole the cost of kol davar godol, kol davar of shel godol. I might have thought that it meant anything relating to a great person also needs to go to the Sanhedrin. So Kamash Milan, so no, it does not mean that.
So it's not that pashut.
So only when it comes to crimes the Kohen Gadol himself committed, he needs 71. If it has to do with the Kohen Gadol has a dispute, financial dispute with somebody, it's still regular 3 judges. Okay, but we don't resolve the issue of the ox. We leave that there. Ein motziin. So the next one is we cannot go to war without asking 71. Binonimi, we were know that from. Amar Ravo, Rabbi Vo says, Domar Kor, the pasuk says, Lifnei Elazar HaKohen Ya'amod. So that he has to stand. The Torah tells us that when it's time to go out to war, so you're supposed to stand before Elazar HaKohen, and he was the when you go out to war, and you have to ask the Urim v'Tumim before Hashem. The pasuk says, "V'lifnei Elazar HaKohen Yamod v'sha'alo b'mishpat ha'Urim lifnei Hashem al piv yetzu v'al piv yavo." Based on his word, you should go out, and his word that you should come in. Hu v'chol b'nei Yisrael ito. He and all of the b'nei Yisrael were with him. V'chol ha'eda, and also the entire congregation. So we're going to need to know who's all of Yisrael, who's the whole congregation. The Urim v'Tumim, everybody needs to be there. So the pasuk explains. So. Ya'amod, he should be standing there. So then, who? So I'm sorry. Lifnei Aaron Yahakoin Ya'amod. Period. Who? The who? He should stand. Who's the he in this pasuk? Zeh Melech. That's the king. V'chol b'nei Yisrael. Ito, that's the whole Yisrael, Bnei Yisrael. Who's that? Zeh Meshuach Milchama. That represents the Kohen, who was especially appointed before the war. He was anointed to give the pep talk before the war. He would gather in front of the army, and he would say, "If anybody is scared, go home. If anybody is just got married, go home." He goes and gives this whole speech, and he says, "But we're going to win." And he gives that person is called the Meshuach Milchama because he represents the Jewish people.
Like the commander in chief.
He doesn't actually command. He's not the general. He just gives the speech, right? He's like a spiritual leader who shows up before we go to battle.
He's like the chaplain of the army.
That's kind of like that, yes. So he comes as well. V'chol ha'eda, and the whole Eda, who's the Eda? Zeh Sanhedrin. That is the Sanhedrin, is the Eda. So that's who had to come and ask. In order to go to war, they would convene the war council. The war council, the king, and the Sanhedrin, and the Kohen Meshuach Milchama, and the Kohen Gadol. They were all there. V'dilma, l'Sanhedrin hu dekamar lehu rachmana, de lishailu be'urim v'tumim. So maybe the Sanhedrin is being told that Hashem is telling them that they should ask the Urim v'Tumim. Maybe that's what the pasuk means. Not that the Sanhedrin has to get asked permission. Not that this is a whole list of people who have to get asked if you should go to war, but that these are the people who then show up to ask the Urim v'Tumim, and the Urim v'Tumim makes the call whether you go to war. The way that we're reading it here is the king gets asked. It's a war council, right? Everybody here is deciding whether they're going to go to war. Ella ki hod Amar Rav Acha bar Bizna. So rather, it's what Rav Acha bar Bizna says. Amar Rabbi Shimon Chasida. It's from the following story. Kinor haya toli l'mala mita shel David. There was a harp hanging over David HaMelech's bed. A kinor, is that a harp? It's kind of like a lyre.
It says a harp.
It says harp? A harp. It's a harp.
It says a harp.
Right? It's not like the 99-string harp or whatever. It seemed like, you see those instruments that David plays.
In English, it says the harp over here.
Okay, we'll go with the harp. Okay, so it was hanging over. Kevan she'egia chatzos laila, when it would get to midnight, ruach tzfonis min hasheves bo, the north wind would come through, would blow through the window, and it would play the harp. V'haya menagin me'elov, and it would the harp would play by itself. Miyad haya David omed ve'osik b'Torah. That would wake David up in the middle of the night. Time to go learn. Ad sha'al amud shachar. So he would learn. He would get up at midnight and learn Torah until the sunrise. until Amud HaShachar, right? Alus, right? Came and Sha'ol Amud HaShachar, once Amud HaShachar came, Nichnesu Chachmei Yisrael Etzlo. Then the Chachmei Yisrael would come, and they'd come in to ask him. Amru Lo. They would say to him, Adonenu HaMelech, our master the king. Amcha Yisrael Tzrichin LeParnasar. The Jewish people need food. Amar lehen lechufis parnasu zem. He said, okay, great. Everybody should go do some business. Let's have an economy. Go. So Amru Leh, they said to him, Ein hakometz masbias ha'ari. He says, a handful's not going to suffice for a lion, right? The rich people are not going to be able to give enough for all the poor people. We can't, right? Can't tax the rich, right? That's not going to be a solution that's going to work. Ve'ein habor mismali michul yoso. You can't dig a hole and then in order to fill up a hole, dig some dirt out of the hole and put it back in. That's not going to be enough. Amar lehem, so he said to them, Lechu pashtu yedechem bigdud. So he says, okay, time to go to battle, right? What was happening is the Amaleki, during those years, the Amaleki, they would have raiders that would be marauding against the outside towns. So David Melech said, great, okay, let's raise the war party and let's go attack them back and seize our property back. And rescue people. Miyad yoatzim b'Achitofel. So what they would do is they would go ask advice from Achitofel. And then he was the chief advisor for Nimlachin Sanhedrin, and then they would go ask the Sanhedrin, Visholim be'urim ve'tumim, and then they would go ask the Urim ve'tumim. Amar Rav Yosef says, "My kra." What is the pasuk that says that was the order of the way that things were supposed to go? Because the pasuk says, "Va'acharei Achitofel." Now this pasuk only seems to imply a list of people who were in David's cabinets. But
is the one that betrayed him.
Yes, he betrays David at the end when David's son eventually rebels. Achitophel joins the rebellion side, figuring that David's done, right? And he winds up committing suicide, right in the end, right? So I don't know if you say this about people who have this, right. He was a bad guy in the end. But anyway, he was a big tzaddik. He was David Melech's Rebbe for a while. So now, after him was Benayo ben Yoda, Vevyosar Sar Tzval Melech Yoav, Achitophel. So now we're going to go through who were these people. Achitophel ze Yoetz. Achitophel was the advisor. V'chein hu amar, it says v'atzas Achitophel asher Yoetz. The advice that Achitophel would give, they would listen to. Benayo ben Yehoyada, who was he? Zu Sanhedrin. He was the head of the Sanhedrin, and that was the person they would ask next. Evyasar, who was Evyasar? Elu Urim V'tumim. He was the Kohen Gadol. He had the Urim V'tumim, and that was the Urim V'tumim they would ask. V'chein hu amar, the pasuk says, "Benayo ben Yoda ala Kresi ve'al Plesi." The pasuk says that Benayo ben Yehoyada was in charge of the Kresi Plesi. The Kresi Plesi is another word for Urim V'tumim. I don't know what those exact Kresi Plesi. Kares, the one that establishes and cuts in Plesi. That's places. I guess astonishing or astounding, and
sounds like crazy.
Crazy place, yeah, it's a crazy place. Crazy place. Velama nikra shman crazy place. Why is it called crazy place? Crazy shekorsin divrehen. Crazy is called crazy because its words were set and established, or cut. Clear, uplesi shemufloin masei, and it was astonishing. V'achar kach, afterwards sarat tzava. Then, after they asked all of those, they would go to the general. Right, Lemelech Yov. He says, "Starts of Lemelech Yov." Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Brei Rav Adav. Amri Lam Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Avdumi. Mikra. What is the pasuk? Ura kevodi. Ura hanevel v'chinor ira shachar. There's a pasuk says, right. That's the song, right? Ura kevodi. Which means that I'm not going to sleep with my honor like other kings do, right? Up until a third, right? They sleep until the third of the day, right? We learned by Maseches Brachos that that kings would sleep, get up in the third hour into the day. David HaMelech said, I will not wake up late because of my honor. I will wake up with the navel, which is the harp, and the kinor, and I will arise before the morning. That's what David HaMelech would use. Next, Ve'in Mosif and Aliyir. The next case is we don't add on to the city without 71 judges. Minani Mili. I forgot to mention that we're on Tezaino Bays. We are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 lines down. I said I was going to mention when we turn the page, and I haven't been, but I will do that.
Actually, I reminded you.
Yes, Minani Mili. Where do we know this from? Amar Rav Shimi Bar Chia. Rav Shimi Bar Chia says, Amar Krol says, K'chosher ani mar'eh osach as tavnis hamishkan. Anything that I show you, the construction, proper construction of the Mishkan. So v'chein ta'asu ledoros, and this is what you should do for all generations. When they established the Mishkan, Hashem said, according to what I show you. So just as Moshe is the Sanhedrin, he had to be shown when they were establishing the Mishkan. So too, for all generations, the Sanhedrin has to be shown when they're going to establish the city or establish the area of the location of the Beis Hamikdash. So Mesiv Rava asked one question. Kol hakim shasa Moshe mishichasan mikadshan. So all of the utensils that Moshe Rabbeinu made, he poured anointed oil on them, and that is how they became holy. Mikan ve'elech. But from then on, from all generations, whenever they would bring new utensils in, the way they became consecrated is avodasan michan nechasan. The service would consecrate them. They would bring them and use them in the service, and once they were used in the service, that's made them consecrated.
Is that why we take these to the mikvah now? Because we have
mikvahs. That's going to be a different thing, right? But this is just as far as usage in the Beis Hamikdash is concerned. And remember, these items were made by Jews, so they would not require mikvah in any event. But just a side point.
I thought you had to consecrate something before.
So no.
When you have something for the
Beis Hamikdash,
so you decided before.
So if you are consecrating something for Bedek Habayis, let's say for upkeep, you can donate to the Beis Hamikdash. You can make a declaration and say this is for, but it would not become kodesh legufo, meaning that the item itself would be holy for service until you actually used it in the service. Now, v'amai, why should this be that the method for sanctifying a utensil changed? Originally it was with oil, and now it is with service. Nema v'chein ta'asu ledoros haboyin. It should be like we just said, that everything should be just like the same way. V'chein ta'asu means the way that you should do it. That means that all future generations should consecrate the same way. We should get some oil, and we should consecrate all the utensils. So shani hosam, that's different over there. Damar Kros, the pasuk says, vayim shachem vayikadesh osam. He anointed them and he made them holy. The extra word osam, them. Osam b'meshicha v'ledoros b'meshicha means that those utensils needed to be made holy with oil, but not the ones for all generations. B'meshicha. Ve'ema osam b'meshicha v'ledoros I b'meshicha I ba'avoda. Well, maybe all it means is that the ones that were done back then were done with anointing the oil. But nowadays we have a choice, right? We can do it either way. So Amar Rav Papa says, Amar Kol, the pasuk says, Asher Yisharsu Bam Bakodesh, you serve with them in the holy locations. Hakasav Talon Bishirus. The pasuk says that making them holy is dependent on their service. Ela Osam Lamali. So okay, well now that making them holy in the future generations is clearly only dependent on service, then the word Osam is extra, and I don't need it anymore because it doesn't tell me that there's a difference between the way it was in the past and the way that it is now. So why do I need the word Osam? Ilav Osam. Because if I didn't have the word osam, because I would have thought that in future generations I would have had a choice again. Because if I would have served with them, it would have been fine. But there's also a pasuk that says you can also do it by anointing them, just like you did before. You should do it again. So the Torah writes, so you should do it in the future. Osam. So the pasuk says, those utensils should be done by anointing. The ones in the future generations are not done with anointing. And then it comes along clearly and specifies that service is what sanctifies the utensils in the future, not oil. So therefore we sanctify utensils in the Beis Hamikdash through service. Then we have Ve'enos and Sanhedrios, and we don't make the 23-judge Sanhedrios, that's the plural, Sanhedrios, without a Sanhedrin of 71 appointing them. So the Sanhedrin of 71 appoints the lower court of 23.
Isn't Sanhedrin already plural? Why
Sanhedrin, right. So if I have multiple Sanhedrins, I have Sanhedrios. So no, yeah. So the answer is not. Sanhedrin is a singular one Sanhedrin.
You get a few at the same time?
So that's what we had, the Sanhedrin Hagdola, the large one with 71, and the 23 court judges, the 23 judge courts are also called Sanhedrios. So yes, excuse me. So where do we know that from? Kidashkachan ben Moshe, Deoki Sanhedrios. Moshe Rabbeinu also established lower courts. Right? When Yisrael told him to establish one, he also did. Moshe was acting in the capacity of the Sanhedrin when he did so. Where do I know the source that I'm supposed to make judges for the Jewish people? Talmud Pasuk says, Shoftim Titain, you're supposed to make judges. Pasuk says it clearly. Shotrim Yisrael Minayin, how do I know that there should be officers? So Talmud Lomar Shotrim Titain. You're supposed to also put officers. Shoftim l'chol shevet v'shevet minayin. So I don't know that every single shevet gets their own set of judges. Talmud Lomar Shoftim l'shvatecha. Shotrim l'chol shevet v'shevet minayin. How do I know Shotrim for every judge? Talmud Lomar Shotrim l'shvatecha. So therefore, all of this, you need to have a court system in every tribe for each their own cases. Shoftim l'chol ir v'ir minayin. How do I know that every city is supposed to have their own judges? Talmud Lomar Shoftim l'sharecha. You need to have judges in your cities. Shotrim l'chol ir v'ir minayin. How do I know that I need officers in every city? Right, local levels of government. Talmud Lomar Shotrim l'sharecha. I needed shotrim in every city as well. Rabbi Yehuda says, Echad memuna al kulon. There is one court that was in charge of all of them. Shenemar pasuk says, Titen lecha. You should place it above all else. So therefore, there's one Sanhedrin Gedola that was in charge of all of them. Rishon Gamliel Omer lishvatecha v'shaftu mitzvah b'shevet ladun es shivto. So Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says it has to be for your shevet is a mitzvah for each shevet to judge the cases that apply to their own individual shevet. So that means that a person from this shevet shouldn't go to another shevet's based in order to get their judgment decided. Right? You're supposed to go to your local one. So now, if it ain't osin irni dachas. Now let's talk about irni dachas for a little bit. You're not allowed to make an irni dachas without the 71 judges. How do I know that? Amar Rabbi bar Yosef, Rabbi Yosef, Amar Rabbi Yoshaya. Amar Krol pasuk says, "Votseisa es haisha hu o es haisha he." You're going to take that man or that woman out. Ish v'isha tamoti l'sharecha. That means a local court only can judge an individual, right, who commits avodah zarah. V'yet tamoti kol irkulu l'sharecha. A whole city does not get judged in a court of 23. The whole city needs to get judged in the 71. Ain os an irni dachas besafar. The Mishnah says you're not allowed to make an irni dachas on a border town. My time, why is that not allowed? Because the pasuk says mikir becham achrona velo min hasavar. Pasuk says that from those towns that are in your midst. Right? If there's a city that is worshiping idols in your midst, that does not mean those that are on the fringes or on the borders. Right? And we're going to sort of give an explanation why, but at least with every other explanation out of the way for a moment, it would seem that those that are on the border towns are potentially influenced, and it's not their fault as much as those that are in your midst. And so therefore, if it happens to be that here's a border town and they're taking on some customs from other, it's not right, but maybe it's not the same level of Aveira as somebody who decides, hey, I'm going to be a rebellious Jewish person in the middle of Eretz Yisrael and start worshiping idols in the middle of the Jewish country. Velo sholosh, you're not allowed to make 3 of them. Dichsiv, the pasuk says, achas. Right? Aval osin achas oshtayim. Dichsiv arecha. Says you can make 1. You can also make 2. How do I know? Because the pasuk says arecha, which is plural, your cities. So I could do 1 because it says 1, and then it says 2. Okay, Tana Rabbanan. Achas. So it says 1, achas velo shalosh, but not 3. You can do only 1. You can't make 3. So atomer achas velo shalosh, you say 1, not 3. Achas velo shtayim, maybe 1 means not 2. Keshu omer arecha. So therefore, when the pasuk says your cities, plural, so harei shtayim, that means that you can make 2 cities into an irni dachas omer. Hamani makayim achas. So if that's the case, so then if 2, you can also make 2 irni dachas in the country. So then why does it say 1? So achas velo shalosh to tell you 1, but not 3. Right? You don't have an unlimited number of irni dachos that you're allowed to do. Zimnin amar Rav based in echad hu de'ein osin. So sometimes Rav would say that the limit to the number of are hanidachos is the proper plural, the cities that are going to be destroyed. So he would say that it was one basin. One basin had no right to do multiple cases like this. Or maybe 1 or 2, right? But if you go to 2 or 3 different batei dinim, then it would be okay to do.
Why is that?
Because the Torah just says that you can't make 1 or 2. You can only make 1 or 2. You can't make 3. That sounds like it is a restriction on the courts, not a restriction on ever, right? So, but then v'zimnin amar Rav. Some other times Rav would say, "Afil b'shnei mishlosh batei even multiple courts." Li'olam ein osin. You're never allowed to make more than 2 in the entire history of the Jewish people, it would seem. Because remember, it's the Sanhedrin. So he says multiple courts. We're talking about multiple generations. That's the only way to have multiple Sanhedrin. There's no multiple courts of 71 at a time. So we're talking about even beyond generations, for all time, you can never have more than 2 arei nidachos in the history. My taimo de Rav. Why? What is Rav's rationale? The answer is Mishum Karcha. The answer is because you'll wind up destroying the land. You'll have empty land and empty space. That brings in wild animals, it brings in marauders and people. You don't want to leave the places unsettled. So therefore, destroying too much is not a good thing.
Could you build houses on that? Could you build houses on that land to make it more, to make it into a bigger city?
It might be that that you might not be able to, if the area might become Asr Bahana. Right, just like when you have to destroy an animal that's chayv misa, we said that it's asur b'hana, you can't get any benefit from it. That area, I believe, maybe asur b'hana, you might not be able to rebuild it. Right. So Amar Reish Lakish says, Lo shana el b'makom echad. This prohibition is only in one of the provinces. Remember, we said there are multiple provinces in Eretz Yisrael, 3 different geographical sections. But you can do it in 2 or 3 different locations. Rabbi Yochanan Omer ein osin mishum karcha. Rabbi Yochanan says you don't do it because it's going to make the land bald, literally, right? Literally bald, meaning figuratively, it'll be
naked. It'll be like naked.
Yeah, barren. Thank you. Tanya Kavasi Rabbi Yochanan. We have a brayse that supports Rabbi Yochanan. Says Enos and Sholosh Ayoros Munudachos B'Eretz Yisrael. We can't make 3 Irehin and Arei Hanidachos in Eretz Yisrael. Aval Osin Osam Shtayim. But you can do 2. Kigon Achas BeYehuda v'Achas BeGalil. Right, you can do 1 in Yehuda and 1 in Galil. Aval shtayim b'Yehuda, shtayim b'Galil, ain osin. But you can't do 2 in Yehuda and 2 in Galil. That you can't do. Usmuch l'safar filo achas ain osin. And if it is close to the border, you can't even do 1. Right, you can never do it on the border. My time, what is the reason why they say you can't do one on the border? Shema yishmu nachrim v'yachrivu es Eretz Yisrael. Maybe the non-Jews are going to hear about it and they will destroy the Jewish people. Now, there's 2 ways for me that I was thinking to understand that. Simple way is they'll understand that the border is open, right? Nobody's protecting this town. So now that that town is destroyed, they come running right through the gap, right? And they'll assault. Another way to look at it is they will be aware that there's a city that the Jewish people are worshiping Avodah Zarah, and they will take advantage of our Averos and know that Hashem is angry at us at that time and attack at that time. That could be another way to look at it. But why don't you just learn out, like we said, the pasuk said, from amidst your land that you can make these ernidachas, but not from the border towns. Why do I have to have a reason? Why is a reason relevant? The Torah already tells it to me. So the answer is Rabbi Shimon, who he didarish time of the krutz. Rabbi Shimon is the opinion who says that we always learn the reasons behind psukim. That Rabbi Shimon is of a consistent opinion that when the Torah tells you a law, we try to figure out what is the intention behind that law. And if that intention, the reason behind that law doesn't apply, the Torah law does not apply. The example that Rabbi Shimon gives is when a person is told that if a woman who's a widow owes you, you can come and collect a garment from her as collateral, right? But what winds up happening is in order to make sure that she's not suffering, you have to return that garment when she needs it, right? So you're going to come and you're going to collect it in the morning and then bring it back at night. Well, she's a widow. So you're going to be showing up every morning, every night at her house. People are going to start to wonder about her.
If you take her garment, if you take her garment, it's not stealing from her?
No, because she owes you money, right? So it's a collateral, right?
It's like collateral damage.
It's a collateral, right? So therefore, you're just going to hold on to it and you're going to give it back to her. Problem is that you keep showing up, people are going to start thinking inappropriate things. So therefore, you're not allowed. The Torah says you're not allowed to do that. Well, ask Rabbi Shimon, what if the woman's rich? If she's rich, you can collect the item and keep it. You don't have to come and bring it back every time because she's got plenty, right? You can keep this garment and then she's got plenty. You don't have to return it. So therefore, if you don't have to return it, so then you can collect an item from a widow, right? Even though the Torah says, don't collect from a widow. Rabbi Shimon explains there's a reason for that, and if the reason doesn't apply, you don't have to worry about that, right? So Rabbi Shimon is consistently of the opinion that we try to figure out what the rationale behind what the rationale behind the psukim is, and if it doesn't apply, let's say for example this was an area that there were other cities nearby to protect the area, and it wasn't going to be a damage or concern, you could do an irni dachas in that location, for example. That would be his position.
If she just became a widow, you take one of her garments. Is she at one of her weaker points because she just lost?
Sorry?
If she just became a widow and you took one of her garments, isn't that like you're taking from isn't that like one of her weak spots when she just lost one of her points?
Well, you don't want to make her upset, that's true, but remember she owes you money, right? So you're doing the nice thing by not taking the money, right? You're just saying, I'll hold on to this and I'll give it back to you. That is a nice thing to be doing. Okay, so now, Sanhedrin Gedola Haisa. So now the next thing is the Sanhedrin Gedola was 71 judges. The pasuk says that we learned it from Moshe Rabbeinu as he's told to gather 70 people, and the question we had was Rabbi Yehuda says 70 total. That's the Sanhedrin, and then the other opinion was 71 because it was 70 plus Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, my time of the Rabbanan. What is the Rabbanan's viewpoint? Damri Moshe al Gabehen. Moshe Rabbeinu was in charge of the 70, so that makes 71. Amar Kra v'yisyatzvu sham imcha. Right? It says that Moshe Rabbeinu said they'll stand with you, va'at ba'adaihu. You are with them. For Rabbi Yehuda imcha mishum. We are on Yud. Thank you. Zayin Amid Aleph, and Rabbi Yehuda says imcha mishum shechina. The only reason Moshe was there was to transfer the shechina to the other 70. But the 70 themselves were the Sanhedrin. That these people are going to go with you. They're going to lift with you the burden of the nation. Which means you're with them. Rabbi Yehuda says, Rabbi Yehuda, they're going to be like you, meaning they will be a Sanhedrin, like you're a Sanhedrin, but not that they need to be with you. The Rabbanan say what it says, that they're going to make it light upon you, and they will go and they will lift with you. That's where it comes from. And where you learn the Sanhedrin Gedola from the Sanhedrin Ketana. Right, the pasuk says itcha. To tell us that just as Moshe Rabbeinu had, that when he appointed the lower courts, Moshe Rabbeinu still remained above them. So too, when he appointed the upper court, Moshe Rabbeinu was still above that court. He was still in charge of that court, and they learned this from the lower court. So therefore, we see that according to Rabbanan, 71, according to Rabbi Yehuda, 70. Ton Rabbanan. Our rabbis on V'yishau Shnei Anashim b'Machaneh. Here's a story. There were two men. They stayed behind in the camp, named Eldad and Medad. Right, and they were continuing to prophesize. Yesh omrim bekalpi nishtayru. Some say that what happened was, what does it mean that they were left behind? What was left behind? Their lots were left behind. What happened? Hashem said to Moshe, Asveli shivimish, get 70 of the Miziknei Yisrael, get 70 elders. So Amar Moshe said, Ketzad Aseh, how am I supposed to do that? Evror shisha mikol shevet v'shevet. I'll take 6 from every shevet. Problem is, 6 times 12, nimtu shnayim yiseirim, I'm going to have 72. I'll have 2 extra. So what do I do? Evror chamisha chamisha, I'll take 5 from every shevet. Mikol shevet v'shevet. Nimtu asara chaseirim, I'll be 10 short. 5 times 12 is 60. So that's not going to work. Evror shisha mishevet zeh v'chamisha mishevet zeh, I'll take 6 from some of the shvatim and 5 from some of the other ones. Harini matokina ben shvatim, somebody's going to get jealous and upset. So I can't do that. So what did he do? Birur shisha, he told every shevet he picked 6 people from every shevet. Ve'evi shivim u'shnayim piskin, and he got 72 lots. Al shivim kosav zakin u'shnayim hiniyah cholak. He put 70 on 70 of them. He wrote zakin, and on 2 he left them blank. Blolon, he mixed them up. V'nasna b'kalpi, he put them all in a lot. Amar lehem bo tzlu piskechem. He said, everyone come and take yours. Call me sha'allah biyad zakin. Amar kvar kidash chab shemayim. Anyone who picked up in their hand one that was said that they are a zakin, so that means that he told them the heavens have already declared you to be an elder. Misha Allah biyad cholak. If it came out blank, Amar hamakam lo chavetzbach. Hashem doesn't want you. Ma ani ma'aselach. What am I supposed to do with you? Kehiyotzi badavar. Same kind of a situation. Omer v'lakachta chameshes shkolim lagugolas. Same thing happened. When the Levium were counted, it came out that there were 22,000 Levium. There were 22,273 Bechorim. And so somehow they wanted to take, every Bechor was going to be redeemed by a Levi, but there were going to be 273 extra Bechorim. So what were the Bechorim supposed to do? Each of the ones that were extra had to pay 5 extra shkolim to redeem themselves. Okay, so here we go. Amar Moshe, Ketzad as Elohen. What am I supposed to do, Yisrael? Im Omer lo tainli pidyoncha. If I go to every one of them and say, okay, you have to give me 5 shekel, but say, and then you're going to be redeemed. Yomer Levi's going to say, Kvar Padani ben Levi. A Levi is not me. A Levi took care of me. I don't have to pay, right? Everybody's going to say it's not me. Ma so he did. Hevi Esrim Mishnaim Alofim Piskin. He brought 22,000 lots. V'kasav Aleim ben Levi, and he wrote ben Levi on them. V'al Shlosha v'Shivim Masayim Kasav Aleim Chamisha Shkolim, and on 273 of them he wrote 5 shekel. Blow on, he mixed them all up, v'nosam b'kalpi, he put them in the lot bag. Amar lehen, he said, Tlu piskechem, take your lot. Misha Allah b'yado ben Levi, one who came out and said, the son of Levi. Amar lo kvar pedacha ben Levi, he said, a Levi has already redeemed you. Misha Allah b'yado chamesh shekalim, the one who came out with 5 shekel. Amar lo tein pinyoncha, you have to pay up. Vitzei, and that way you'll be out. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Shimon says, so that was answer number 1. What do they mean? What happened was, they were all supposed to pick, and Eldad and Medad didn't show up. They didn't pick. 2 lots were left in the hat. They never showed up and didn't pick their lots. They didn't want to embarrass anybody or make it, so they didn't show up and pick their lots. So that's what that means. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Rabbi Shimon says, B'machan and nishtayru. They stood behind in the camp. When Moshe Rabbeinu told, when Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, Asfa li shivim ish, gather me 70 men. Amru Eldad u'Medad. Eldad and Medad made the following declaration: Ein anu ru'li and lo sigdom. We are not appropriate. We're not supposed to get this. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem says, Hu miyatasem atzmechem. Since you voluntarily reduced yourself, Hareini mosif gedula gedulaschem. I'm going to elevate you to even higher levels. Ma gedula hosif. What elevation did he give them? Shehanavim kulon nisnavu upasku. All of the other ones, they gave their nevuah and then they stopped. Veim nisnavu velo pasku, and they gave their prophecy and they didn't stop. Uman nevuah nisnavu. What was the prophecy that Eldad and Medad gave? Amru, they said Moshe Mace. They said Moshe is going to die. Yoshua machnis es Yisrael la'aretz, and Hashem is going. That Yoshua is going to be the one who takes us in. Abachanan Amar Abachanan says, Mishum Rabbi Eliezer al Iske Slav Hein Misnavim. They were the ones who said, the Jewish people were complaining that they wanted meat. They are the ones that made a prophecy and they said that the quail is going to come flying in. And so they prophesied about that. Alei Slav. That's what they said. The Slav is coming up. The Slav is coming up. Rav Nachman says, Al Iske Gog Magog Hayun Misnavim. They were prophesying about the end of days battle between Gog and Magog. They were like going for the gusto. Shinamar pasuk says, Ko Amar Shem Elokim Ha'atahu Asher Dibarti Bayamim Kamonim. This is the one I said that in the earlier days, Biad Avdei Nevi Yisrael, in the hands of the servants of the prophets of Yisrael, HaNeviim Bayamim Mahem, that were prophets during those days. So Shnaim, the 2 prophets, Lahavi Oschal Lehem, to bring them upon you. So it says Shanim. Bayamim Ahem Shanim, in those years, Lahavi Oschal Lehem. Al Tikri Shanim, don't read it as years, Ela Shnayim. It was the 2 prophets. Ve'ezo Hein Shnayim, Neviim, who are these 2 prophets? Shnisnavu Beperek Echad, that prophesied at one point, Nuvu Achas, one prophecy, Haviomer Eldad u'Medad. This was Eldad u'Medad. So 3 different opinions as to what Eldad u'Medad prophecy. But Rashi only brings the part about Moshe, that they prophesied about Moshe dying and Yeshua going into bring them in Eretz Yisrael. So you have to read the whole Gemara, get more stuff out of it. Amar Mar, Kol Navim Kula Nisnavu Upasku. All of the prophets, they were all prophesying and they stopped. Vehem Nisnavu Velo Pasku. They kept prophesying and they didn't stop. Minolon de Pasku. How do we know that the other one stopped? Elim, because the pasuk says Vayisnavu Velo Yasafu. They were prophesying and Lo Yasafu. Now the word Yasafu could come from 2 different root words. From the word Sof, mean that it was ended, or Yasaf means to continue. So which word lo yasafu? It does it mean that they didn't continue, or does it mean they did not stop? So ela me'ataf, it means that you're going to say v'lo yasafu, and they did not continue. El me'ata kol gadol lo yasaf, it was a great voice, lo yasaf. Hachinami de lo osifhu, ela de lo pasikhu. This voice means the lo yasaf means it didn't end. V'lo yasaf, kol gadol v'lo yasaf, it didn't end. Not that it didn't continue. So that's not what the word yasaf means. The word yasaf means it didn't continue. Ela hacha ksiv. This is what it means. Vayisnavu, hasam, ksiv misnavim, Adayin misnavim v'hochim. So it says they, when it came to the 70, it says vayisnavu, they prophesied in the past tense. Then when Yeshua came running to Moshe, telling Moshe, hey, there's Eldad and Medad, misnavim in the present tense. They are giving a prophecy. So therefore, they're continuing to give prophecy. Okay. Bishlama lamandar Moshe Mace. So I understand, according to the opinion that says Moshe was going to die, that was the prophecy. Heinrich Siv, Adoni Moshe Kal Aim. That's why Yeshua was all upset. Yoshua came running back to Moshe and he said, Moshe, you got to put these guys in jail. They're prophesizing terrible things. Elamanda Marhanach Tarti, the other two opinions. Maya Doni Moshe Kalim, why was it so upsetting that Yoshua had to throw them in jail? Delav Orech Ara Dehavale Ketamid Hamora Halacha Lifnei Rabo. The answer is because it was inappropriate. Moshe Rabbeinu is the Gadol Hador. They shouldn't be giving prophecy on anything important when Moshe Rabbeinu is around. Bishlam Elamanda Marhanach Tarti, according to those who say the other two opinions, that's great. Hainu Dichsiv, that's Pasuk says, Mi Tain. Moshe Rabbeinu says everybody should prophesy. I don't want, there's no limits. Why should I stop anybody else from prophesying? I have no problem with everybody giving a nevuah. Alamandam Moshe makes. What about the prophecy that Moshe died? Minach Hava Nicholei. So the answer is that's going to be good for Moshe. Moshe's happy that they're prophesying about his own death. Moshe's happy about that. So the answer is Lo Saimua Kameh. The answer is Yoshua didn't get the words out. Yoshua comes running in. He says they're giving a prophecy that, and Moshe says, "Don't worry. If they're giving a prophecy, it's good. Don't worry, it's good." Right? Moshe Rabbeinu didn't let him finish to get upset about it. So my Kal Aim. What does that mean to throw them to Kal Aim? Amarle Hatel Alei and Tzarchei Tzibur. Kal Aim doesn't mean literally throw them in jail. It means worse. Put them in charge of people, right? Make them the rabbi. Vehem kalin me'alei, and that's gonna restrict them enough, right? Put them in charge.
I hear some sarcasm in there.
Yeah, it's true. Minayin lavi od shlosha. Okay, so now, from where do we know that we're going to bring another 3? Right? We've got 23 judges in the small court. We said 10 have to be positive, 10 negative. And where do the other 3 come from? So we said that because we need to be at least a majority of 2 if we're going to judge somebody convicted. So therefore we need 12 to 10. So therefore add 2, but you can't have an even court. So now you're at 23. Sof asked the Gemara at the end of the day, L'ra pishnaim lo mishkacha. So you're still going to wind up with 12 to 11. If you're judging negatively, you're only going to have a 1-person majority again. So I echad asar mezakin u'shneim asar mechayvin akasi chadhu. He says you're right. If you wind up to 12 to 11, you're still only going to have a majority of 1, and that's no good. So he says then, and if you're going to wind up with 13 to 10, so then that's going to be 3. So Amar Rabbi Yavo i'ata motzi ela b'musafin v'divrei hakol. So he says you're right. You're not going to wind up with 2 people, right? We said this is the problem. You're never going to have a majority of 2. You only have a majority of 1, or you're going to have a majority of 3, but you're never going to have a majority of 2. So the answer is you're right, but you do get a majority of 2 in a circumstance where you're going to add extra judges. We're going to have a circumstance where we have a hung court, right? We're going to have a court, and you're going to wind up with one group that says one way, and the other group is going to say, and one person's going to say, I don't know. So therefore, in a circumstance like that, you could wind up with a 14 to 12 conclusion with one judge abstaining. So you could wind up with, we'll learn the rules of adding judges in the hung jury cases later on. Also, you can wind up with a 2-person majority in a circumstance according to Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda holds that you have an even number of Sanhedrin justices in 70. So therefore, you can always wind up with a case judged 36 to 34, right? So it's always going to be 2. Damar Shivim, he says 70. Rabbi Yavo says, B'mosifin osin besin shakol lechadchila. So he says, when you're adding people on, you're going to be making an even number of justices in the first place. So, pshita, that seems obvious, right? You're going to add on another justice, you're going to add on another judge, so you're going to wind up with an even number, so that's obvious. When one judge, what happens is, you wind up with the court, and they're judged 11 to 11, and one guy abstains, right? Or let's say it's one guy is abstaining, so then you have to add on one more guy. Okay, so you might have thought that the person who says I don't know is Kamandi Isidami, he's still on the court. So you're going to add 2 more people now. So you're going to wind up with 11 to 11. You add 2 more people, and now you have 13 to 11. You don't have an even number. That guy is still considered on the court. He's just abstained. V'amar milsa shaminunle. So therefore, if he changes his mind, he goes, you know what? I changed my mind. Now I know. We'd listen to him. Kamash Milan. So therefore, this is coming to tell us, no, the guy who says I don't know, he's off.
Are you allowed to change your mind though?
No. Well, you're allowed to change your mind. You just can't change from I don't know. Right? Once you've said I don't know, and we added justices onto the court because you don't know, now you're out. Now these two judges came and replaced you. Okay? Dahai de kamar eniodea commanda lesidam. He's gone. Ve'i amar taimo lo sham inonle. And if he gives another answer, we don't listen to him. Amar Rav Kahana says Sanhedrin shiro kulon lechova potrino. So if the Sanhedrin goes completely in favor of holding somebody guilty, so then we exempt him, because we require that somebody argue back and say, hey, what about this side? Well, if there's nobody arguing back the other side, then this is a bad court. So therefore, if they are unanimous to find him guilty, he's innocent. Kevon. Because we have a tradition, we learned that what you need to do is once you have the arguments one day, then everybody goes home, sleeps on it, comes back the next day in order to finish the case. So why? The whole reason is in order for people to sleep on it, think about it, and if they can come up with a good reason to get them off, we try to do that. Vahani too, lo chazilai. And this court, if 100% of the people all voted against him, there's nobody thinking of the way to get him off. We'll just try to turn the page before we end. Rabbi Yochanan, ein moshivim Sanhedrin ele bali koma bali chachma. You can't be a justice on a court unless you're tall, wise, ubali mara, good looking, ubali zikna, and you have a beard, ubali kshafim, and you know magic. You know how to stop magic because you know that they're going to come at you with things. You have to be able to stop magic. V'yodim ba'ayin lashon. You have to speak 70 languages. Shiltei Sanhedrin shomas mi piyar metorkim, because we don't want a Sanhedrin to have to hear something from a translator. Rabbi Yehuda Marav. It says the name of Rav. Ein moshifin b'Sanhedrin el mishia de l'tayris asharetz. We never put anybody onto a court unless he's so smart that he can actually prove the opposite of the truth. If he wants to manipulate things, he can prove the opposite of the truth. So he can say that a sheretz, which is the definition of something which is tameh, he can prove that it is tahor min Torah. So Amar Rav, our Rav says, Ani adon v'tarenu. I will do that. We will get to what he says tomorrow because we're going to start davening on the top of Yud Zayin Amud Beis.